In this tutorial, I'm going to be covering the interface, and basically what I'm going to do is just give an interface overview. So over here on the left side, we have several buttons here, and all of these buttons are situated on a bar, and this bar is called the left toolbar. Sometimes it's called the objects toolbar, because this is the toolbar where we create objects, we can group objects, we can place objects in our scene. The next here are these 4 windows situated in the middle of our interface, and these are called the 3D views. Objects that we create will appear in our 3D views here. So this view, this main camera view, is actually a perspective view of whatever we create. This side view, the top view, and the front view are what is called orthogonal views. When placing objects in our view and manipulating them, it's important to know the difference between a perspective and an orthogonal view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to this Autodesk Sketchbook Pro, and what I'm going to try to do is sketch an orthogonal view. And right now I'm using my trackball, so I apologize. I don't have my touchpad here with me at home. My Wacom tablet, so I'm going to try to do this with my trackball the best I can. And what I'm doing is I'm drawing a square, a cube. And to draw something in orthogonal view, these lines here, like this edge and this edge, must be parallel. This back edge and this front edge must also be parallel. So I'm going to draw the front parts of the box. It's the left side, the right front side, and then this edge up here that's going across the top must be parallel with this edge going across the bottom. I'm going to do the best I can to do this. And then this edge up here on the top right must be parallel to the edge on the bottom right. And that is essentially an orthogonal view square. Now over here on the right side, I'm going to draw the exact same square, or cube, and I'm going to try to draw this in perspective. In perspective, we have what's called a vanishing point. So again, we have this edge here, and I'm going to say that it vanishes here, and we notice now that this top left edge is not parallel with this front right edge, nor are the lines equal. So over here, this front edge line and this rear edge line, those lines are equal in length, and they're also parallel. Same thing with this line here and this line here. They're going to be parallel and equal in length. On this perspective box, the top of it, or cube I should say, it is not equal length, and nor do they have to be parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the front part. Sketchbook Pro, by the way, is pressure sensitive, and since I'm using a trackball, it's taking a guess. And I'm going to have it vanish out to that point there. And we notice now that this top right edge is not parallel with this lower right edge like how it is over here. And our rear line now, the back edge of the box, is a much shorter line compared to this front one here. So this right box is a perspective sketch of a cube, and this left one is an orthogonal, and that is basically the difference between these viewports here. So if I create a box, and I'm going to try to illustrate the difference here, you can see, well, first off on this is a side view, so you're never going to see the top or this side or that side or the bottom side. And this one here, this top view, is more of a plan view, and it's an orthogonal view, so you'll never see the edges of this box, and neither will you on this front view. And this is important to understand, because if you're placing objects only in the perspective view, you don't know how close to you or how far away or how far to the left or the right that object is. So you really need to understand that in order to place objects, you're really going to have to use these other three views to know where that object is in respect to existing objects in your scene. I've seen a lot of people try to just place objects only using this perspective view, and they're actually placing the object way out in space somewhere. They don't understand when they finally go to create an animation or they move the camera around why the object suddenly just disappears. The next area we have are the set of buttons going across the top of here. And these buttons, some of them may look familiar and some of them may look kind of alien, but these buttons up here is what we call the operations toolbar. And these are basically the commonly used operations that we would need frequently in View. So what Eon Software has done is move some of these common operations out of these menus up here and put them as buttons up here across the top. The next area over here is this panel to the right side, and this is the scene information bar, and it consists of three areas, and you can resize this by dragging your mouse over here until you see two arrows, and then click and then drag to the right, and that way you can see the three panels a little bit better. We have this top area here, which is called the Object Properties panel. This middle area here, which is called the Camera Control Center, and this bottom area here, which consists of 4 tabs, is the World Browser. And then down here at the bottom, we have what's called the Information bar or the Status bar. And what this does is the first piece of information we get is the number of processors. On this particular machine, we have 4 processors. So if I right click on the taskbar here and select Task Manager, and we go to Performance tab, we can see that there are 4 processors. It's a CPU usage history, and we see 4 processors. The next one is the zoom, and this tells us our zoom percentage right now in the current view that we have selected. And you can tell which view you have selected because it's the window that is highlighted. In my case, in my options, I set my highlighted window to be green. The next one over tells us the number of objects in our scene. So it says we have 2 objects plus 1 light source. Well, our cube is 1 object, our sunlight is a light source, and our ground plane is another object. So those are our 3 objects total in here. 2 objects, 1 light source equals 3. And then over here, the very far right one, this is probably our most important one that we would have to pay attention to all the time, and this is our scene polygon count. Right now we have 8 polygons in our scene. We have the cube, we have the ground plane, and we have something else. Our cube only has 6 sides, our ground plane is just one huge plane, which would count as 1, and then we have some other polygon here which equals 8 polygons. We can click this arrow here and we can select available resources, which is also important to us. So on this laptop I only have 80% resources free for doing more editing in here, adding more things in. And we always have to pay attention to this because when our computer doesn't have enough resources, we're not going to be able to do much more with View, so we'll have to either start billboarding things or minimizing some of our polygon count, and we'll talk about this more later, but just be aware that this tells us how much system resources we have free. Available GPU resources is referring to our graphics cards, so right now I have 12 megabytes.